Howdy everybody, what's up? My name is Sabina, I'm the Left-Handed Alchemist, and welcome to my channel. This week I'm going to show you guys the process of me making a bell out of sterling silver and making a necklace out of that. Originally, when I started this entire video, it was going to be me making two different glass vial toppers. They have roller balls in them, you can put oils in them, medicine, herbs, tinctures, whatever your heart desires. And I was gonna do a video, like a build video about that, but this I think is the epitome of the creative process here in this video, where you have an idea and you start with one idea, and then over the days and weeks and months that you're creating this object, things change, new ideas come to mind. There's this little voice inside your head that says, what if you did this? What if you tried that? My thought was, I try it and see how it goes. I can always make another one. I can always make something else that is and was the intended thing, you know? But I have to be honest, I think that the final outcome of this piece is really cool. And it was something that I couldn't have even dreamed of when I started this whole process. It was something that had to have been born through the act of creating and through the creative process. And I think that that's one of the really cool kind of magical components to the creative process is you just never really know where the flow is going to take you. The flow takes you places, and then there's this voice inside your head that demands, we have to see it through. We have to see what happens. What if I did this? So I'll share a little bit of the insights and the measurements and the details. So if you do actually want to make a glass rollerball vial topper, you can do so, or you can just watch it and learn a few things or make your own bell. I'm going to ask that you don't copy my designs. I think that that's just like a respect thing. You guys probably understand that, but some people don't understand that copying an artist is very disrespectful. Unless you're here for educational purposes and you want to recreate it for the sake of education, that's one thing. Just don't rip my designs. I think I'm kind of afraid of that, and so I bring it up in every video. I think for the most part, I got everything in this video. I got most of the creative process and the process of making this on film. I started this video when I was still living in Arizona and I still had a studio in Arizona. My final weeks there, final studio sessions there, I was filming. And then I think where I did lose a little bit of footage was between moving and arriving in the new place. I didn't get any of the engraving footage, and there was about a month between me finishing the engraving and then me finishing the actual piece and putting it on the necklace and now offering it to you guys. In that time, I moved my entire home to a new state and settled in and set up my new studio space and made a few things and kind of got the ball rolling again. And so it was about a month between when I finished actually fabricating the piece to actually finishing the inking process and putting it on a necklace. So there's a little bit that got lost, and you'll hear about that later in the video, but I'm doing my best. So let's get into it.
Alrighty, y'all. We're gonna make a bell, but from these intro clips, you wouldn't know that we're gonna make a bell because originally I was intending to make silver toppers for these little vials, like a 3 ounce and a 1 ounce rollerball vial to put medicine in. But, like I said in the intro, creative process happened and things changed. So I used 20 gauge metal, and then I'll drop the measurements down below. I can't remember what size rings correlate to the size of these caps. It's currently in my studio and I'm filming this in my office, so I don't have access to that information as we speak, but I measure everything. I use my scribe to make the lines really nice and straight, and then I get to work cutting everything out with my jeweler's saw and cleaning everything up with the largest, flattest file I can find, pushing the metal to make everything nice and smooth because these strips of silver are going to be formed into caps that were intended to sit on the top of oil vials. I'll be honest, the big one is probably still going to be a rollerball vial, but I haven't finished it yet because I moved recently, and one thing about moving is it takes a lot longer than you think it's going to take, and then you find yourself a month later having not touched any of your tools or have created anything big like this, and ideas change and ideas shift. And so I just haven't gotten back to this project quite yet. Once I file everything, I anneal it so that it is nice and soft so that I can start forming it. Basically, just heat it up with your torch. I use an acetylene tank with a bee, an acetylene bee tank with a Smith regulator, and I think this is a size 2 flame, but you could probably do it with a size 1. Size 3 would be faster, but I just did a size 2. And you heat it up until it's cherry red. Silver will melt really fast, so you have to be really careful. I did not pickle this between forming it and annealing it. So what I did was I used my diamond file to get the oxidation off of the ends so that when I do get this little baby boy formed, I can just immediately go ahead and solder it. I mean, if you want things to work out perfectly, maybe pickle it. I use a citric acid pickle. I put a scoop of citric acid, maybe like a half a cup, in a medium-sized crock pot with some water, and I heat it up, and it is perfect for me. I try and reduce the amount of chemicals that I use in my studio, but you know, it's silversmithing. If you know anything about silversmithing, is like there's going to be some chemicals involved. So I get it formed. I would say that my parallel pliers are my #1 MVP, my elite employee. You have been promoted to CEO, you're my elite employee kind of vibes. I love my parallel pliers. They are my go-to tool. So I basically form it. You're not going to get it perfectly round. You just really want to form it until the ends meet so that you can solder it. And then you'll end up forming everything after you have it soldered shut. So work it into a circle as best you can, get those ends flush, work it back and forth. I use my parallel pliers to kind of push everything, use a hammer to tack the ends together, and then here I am soldering it. So everything gets dipped in a boric acid and denatured alcohol mix, kind of poisonous, don't get this on your skin. And then I use batter's flux to actually flux the seam. And as you can see, I have hard solder on that tongue depressor. I wrap all my solder around tongue depressors so I can stick feed. I really love that method, but you're going to make some mistakes if you're trying it for the first time, and you just have to understand that. But once you get used to it, it's actually such a nice way to solder things. I pop the cap onto my ring mandrel and hammer it to get it nice and round, and I test the fit on the oil vial a few times, as you can see, because at this point in the creative process, I'm still making an oil vial cap. So you can see, like, it fits perfectly. You want to have a little bit of room at the top because I am not a purist, I'll say this. I'm going to use glue. I'm going to use some 2-part epoxy in the top of that cap to shove down and put that cap into place. It just works the best, and you don't end up warping your cap. And then if something happens that you need to replace the cap, you can just easily dissolve the cap out with acetone and replace it with a new one, and your cap will still be perfectly fine. You just, like, the plastic part will obviously be destroyed, but like easy to replace. So once I get that perfectly round and fits the cap just how I want it to, I file the side that I'm going to be soldering onto a plate so that it's flush. I use the biggest, flattest file that I have to push and just get everything pretty even. Obviously, you want your back plate to be a little bit bigger than the cylinder. And then I heat it evenly around the bottom until the solder flows. I believe I used medium solder for that joint. I did not film me cutting the smaller topper, but as you can see, it's the same exact process. You just cut around as close as you can to the seam. I leave a little bit of a lip because I'd rather file away the excess than accidentally cut off too much. And then I use a flat file to file off the excess metal. At this point, it's going to be kind of rough. Like, your parallel pliers or your pliers or whatever you use to form the cap is going to mar the piece. And then you have your solder seams, and then you have your excess. So at this point, I am now beginning the cleanup process. Up until now, I basically am only keeping things clean enough so that I can get my solder seams to be nice and flush and nice and like clean. But I know that through the forming process and the soldering process, I'm gonna make a mess. I've been doing this for years and I still get solder everywhere. So like, it's just one of those things. And so for this process, I go and I clean everything up with my Fordham flex shaft using various bits and little pieces. So once I get the major chunks taken off with the file, I go in with slotted mandrels with different grits of sandpaper. That's what this currently is. And then I also go in with my coarse Dedeco, I think it's silicon oxide. I don't actually know. That detail doesn't really matter. My coarse grinding wheel. I believe the brand is Dedeco. You can find them on Rio. that just gets like the gloopy solder off that I couldn't get off with the file. Once I'm done making everything nice and even and getting all of the plier marks out with the slotted mandrel sandpaper, I use this snap-on sanding wheel and I go from fine, or no, not fine, sorry. I go from coarse to fine. And then I graduate to the radial bristle discs. These are not the 3M brand. I believe that the Amazon ones are just as good. You just have to be careful about the grits. They are not the same colors. So I went in with the red one, which was kind of a coarse medium, and then this blue one, which is more fine. And then after this point, I'll throw everything in my tumbler with some ceramic cones, and that will get everything exactly how I want. So I'm going to go back to the little vial topper because this is what's actually going to end up becoming the bell. And I start to do my designing. When I was creating this piece, I was also designing the symbols collection and designing the Arizona collection. And so I was really excited about adding symbols designs to these vial toppers. I thought that would be really fun. So I created like a little frame with a larger jump ring around the top and the bottom of the vial and soldered it all into place with easy solder. As you can see, stick feeding it kind of as I go and heating it around evenly so that the solder flows around the whole thing and we have a nice even solder joint. And then that goes in the pickle to cook and clean up for a while. And while that's cleaning, I'm going to cut out my symbols. So I kind of designed this one as I went. This one features a star, an eyeball, and a sacred heart that I cut out of 22 gauge silver sheet metal. So here I am cutting it, using my diamond files to clean up the edges and sand everything flat and make it really nice and cute. And I use this other pair of parallel pliers to hold the small pieces while I file them. That's a fingertip saver. If you find it really hard to hold onto your pieces, use your parallel pliers to hold onto them while you file. I use this parallel plier that's like a half round, half needle nose kind of situation to bend my little symbols pieces around so that they fit nice and flush to the bell cap that I have created. At this point, it is still going to be a rollerball vial in my head. I have not quite discovered that it will indeed become a bell yet. I'm just having fun transforming my drawings into silver because that's something that I kind of discovered this year, truthfully. Was figuring out how to really draw on my metal. And I think that engraving was the thing that kind of put those pieces together. Like engraving really was the thing that just made me realize I can actually draw on my metal now and I can incorporate my illustration designs in with my silver in a way that used to have to just exist separately. And now they get to exist together, and that feels really magical and really cool. So, yeah, I'm cutting out the pieces and I'm filing them as I go because I think that the filing process is boring. So I try and do it while I go so that it's not just like a pile of filing that has to happen at the end of the process. And then what I do is I lay a little bit of solder down on the backs of each of these pieces so that I can then turn them over and attach them to the bell. I do not actually show you the process of all of these pieces getting soldered down. I just show you the maker's mark, but it's the same idea with all of the other pieces. You lay them down where you want with the solder already on the back, and then it just solders down. This is called sweat soldering. So if you need more information about sweat soldering, you can type that into your YouTube search bar, and I'm sure that there is at least one other person who has made a video about it. And if that is not the case, and there is not a single other person who has shown you the concept of sweat soldering, drop that in the comments and I can show you a better example of sweat soldering. But that's what this is called if you like to know vocabulary for these things. And so at this point, I'm soldering on this spirally thing because I'm about to solder on the bail. I solder on the bail and then I sit with the piece for a few days and I think, this needs to be a bell. Like, this needs to be a bell. So what I end up doing is drilling a hole in the center of that spiral and making a piece of wire that has a hoop on the other end, like using your needle nose pliers to bend a little hoop that I then stick the whole piece through. I think I even have the bell component on there, which is a piece of 14 gauge wire that I melt a little ball onto the end to. Like, I don't know what the actual term is, but when you have a piece of wire and then you melt the top down into a ball like you would for like riveting, that's what the bell is. like the little dingly part of the bell, and I hook that through there, and then I use the solder on the top of this to kind of hold it all in place so it's not going to fall apart. But now we have a bell, and now this is where I lose some footage. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I do not show you the process of me finishing it. I do not show you the process of me engraving it. And here I am in my new studio. I filmed this next part on my iPhone because I've been feeling kind of funny about my art practice lately, and so I've been making content on my phone as a way to cope with my anxiety. Listen to that bell. Oh, she's so cute. Here we are inking it. Everything's been engraved, and the next process is inking. Inking, you can patina. You could use liver of sulfur here and push the black into the recesses. I think that the inking gives you this really nice, rich black color. And so it's just Rust-Oleum oil paint that I dilute with acetone, 100% pure acetone into the lid. You can see I'm kind of mixing it in. It separates the pigment molecules from the actual paint so that it flows better. I think I do this process 2 times because the first time I did it, I don't think that the ink was as thick as I wanted it to be. It ended up being more of like a gray wash instead of this like thick black kind of look. But you just gotta mess with it. You gotta experiment with it. I'm still trying to figure out my ratios with it. I think I've only inked a handful of times in my life, so I'm still kind of figuring out the process. And I use one side to apply the ink and then the other side to wipe away the excess. And then after I wipe away all the excess and kind of get as much ink as I want in there, I will use the 100% pure acetone again to wipe off any of the excess, like you can see on the lip of that bell. And then I let it sit in a sunny spot for like a couple of hours to let that oil paint really cure and stick in there. And then I use a yellow piece of 3M polishing paper. I think it's the fine polishing paper. I don't know what grit it is. It's not coarse like sandpaper, but it just does get all the excess stuff off of there. And then here she is. She's all finished. Listen to that tinkly bell. She's so cute. She's so beautiful. At this point, I'm trying to decide what kind of chain am I going to put on this piece. Like, I could put a thick silver chain on there, and that would be really cool. But I have these beaded necklaces. Sorry, I have to let her. I just have to show off the bell for a second. I have these beaded necklaces that I made probably 2 years ago, and I made a whole tutorial video about that on my other channel. I will link that down below, but they never really sold. I have to be honest, I didn't really try and market them. I didn't really know how to market them. I don't really know how to market my stuff in general. What can I say? I'm an artist, not really a marketeer, but I thought it'd be really cool to put this bell on a beaded necklace. They are 111 beads each, 22 sets of 5 beads, so that you can set intentions. Like 5 is a number of change. You can use, sets of 5 to like really instill change within your life. And I personally use my own necklace that is really similar to this every single night when I'm trying to go to sleep. I use each bead as a different affirmation, and I go around it a couple of times until I feel soothed and I feel good. You can also say affirmations with them, and it's kind of one of those things like the more you use it, the more magical it gets, the more your intentions and the more your energy gets pushed into it. And I just felt like it kind of matched the vibe of a bell. Like the bells are kind of magical in nature. They give me fairy bell vibes. They give me witches bell vibes. They give me like call in your manifestations. Hello, universe, ding-a-ling-a-ling. I'm calling in my intentions. So you can wear it as a necklace. You could even wrap it around your wrist and wear it as a bracelet if you're into that kind of thing. I personally do not like bracelets, excuse me, they drive me absolutely crazy, but I know that there's a lot of people who like them, so those are options for you. It's giving like ritual piece that you're going to want to wear every day. That's kind of my intentions with making it, but alas, what you do with it is up to you because, y'all, this piece is for sale. Just a quick intermission to show you my cat. This is Cheese. For those who don't know, he blesses the studio, and he kind of looks like a seal right here, and he's very cute, so I had to show you that. But yeah, here it is. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Well, that was the video. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll do my best to reply to them, or I will compile frequently asked questions to maybe make like an entire video about that. Like I said in the intro, if you want to recreate these pieces for your own educational purposes, I am totally down with that. I would really hope that you share the photos of your finished product and tag me in them on Instagram, or even just email me. I think it's really cool. Like, I don't know, I think it's cool. But if you're going to copy my designs and sell them as your own, I curse you. So keep that in mind. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more jewelry making content. If you want to purchase this bell or any bell like it, you can visit my website. It's now available for purchase on my website. I will be creating more bells because it was so much fun, and I love the little magical component of it. When I was making this piece, I was actually listening to a fairy fantasy novel, and something about bells and fairies just seem to go hand in hand. It also brings up this rich history of witches' bells and using bells in intention workings to call in your intentions. So I think that's really cool. And the beaded necklace, obviously cool for like prayer and all of that, which I do mention in the video. So yeah, if you like any of it, you can support this channel by just clicking the buttons and doing the things. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm not posting too much on there right now, but that is still an option. I do keep it up just a little bit. And yeah, thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed this. Until next time, my friends. Goodbye.